Hey friends, it's Justin and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we are celebrating the brand new Catherine Pooler Ocean Wonders release and I have a fantastic colorful card to share with you. I do have all the new products we're using listed in this description below for your shopping convenience. Now, for today's project, we're going to be using the brand new Best Fishes stamp set and coordinating die set along with the nested wavy dies. We are also going to be pulling in the Ocean Wonders 6x6 pattern paper collection to create our card. We're also going to be playing with the brand new Oyster color, which is part of the Neutral collection, and I'm so excited to show you how it looks. For our palette, we're going to use On the Lake, Spiced, Whipped Honey, Pucker Up, Creamsicle, Oh Boy, Orange Twist, and Sweetheart inks to pull our palette together. And as you can see, all of these colors are suggested that coordinate with the Ocean Wonders pattern paper collection. Using a piece of favorite white cardstock, I'm going to take the Oyster Ink and I am going to smush and smear it onto the cardstock so that we can use it for our card. Here you can really see that that oyster color is a great grayish sort of color. It's got a little bit of taupe, a little bit of gray to it, and it really sort of compares nicely to that stark whiteness of the cardstock where you can really see that color pop. Using the nested wavy dies, we are going to create a frame, and I'm going to start by die cutting out the largest of the frames that's included. Now, you can go in and use both of the frame die cuts at the same time if you would like. I sort of thought about creating a frame after the fact, so we just went in and created the largest frame die cut first, and now I'm going in with the second largest to sort of map out where it needs to go so that we can create a wavy frame. Once I have that die cut all positioned, I'm going to go in with a little bit of mint tape just to tack down that die cut and process it through my die cutting machine off camera. And here you can see we have this wavy frame to use for our card as a focal point. Now, pulling back in that Ocean Wonders pattern paper pad, I'm going to use this wave pattern that's included as the background for our card. I've cut it down to A2 sized, and here you can see how our wavy frame is going to look all nicely in the center of our panel. Now we've got some stamping to do, so I've got my Misty and my Best Fishes stamp set, and we are going to stamp out a handful of the images that are included to build our little underwater scene. We're going to start by stamping out our two big fishes. I'm going to be using Creamsicle ink on one of the fishes, and then on the second of the fishes, we are going to pull in some of that Sweetheart ink. So I'm just trying to save a little bit of time by stamping both of the images out at the same time. Once I'm satisfied with the impressions, I can then move on to stamp out some more of the images. Now using On the Lake, we are going to stamp out the long fish that's included as part of the Best Fishes stamp set. And then we will also use Orange Twist to stamp out the little piece of underwater coral that we'll be using. Now, the last bit of ink for this go around, we're going to use that Pucker Up ink to stamp out the small little fish. There's one of the two that are included in the set. And then I'm just going to press them down with my Misty Door, pull it up once I'm happy with the impression, and then move on to our next bout of images. We're going to go on to using Oh Boy. I'm going to use this on the second of the littlest of fish. And then once I get that all inked up, we're going to move on to our second, which is going to be using some of that spiced ink on another piece of coral. And that spiced ink really adds a nice darkness to our color palette that I appreciate. The last little bit that we're going to stamp is that little itty bitty starfish that I'm going to position onto our Misty Door, and I'm going to stamp it out with that whipped honey. And I just think yellow and stars work so nicely together, but starfish also lend themselves to be stamped in so many different colors, so there's a lot of versatility with these images. Now off camera, I die cut out all of the images and then pull in some Creamsicle colored cardstock to do a little bit of stamping for our sentiment. So I'm going to position that Creamsicle cardstock into my Misty, and then for our sentiment, we're going to use that Just Wavin' Hello. I'm going to stamp this out using that spiced ink, so it's going to coordinate with the ink colors that we've already selected for our card. And once I'm happy with how much it's stamped out and what the impression looks like, I am going to do a little bit of fussy cutting to get this all cut out. There's not a coordinating die for the sentiment, but I don't mind going in and just cutting it out. I think it gives a nice little tight hug to the sentiment and allows it to really be popped and positioned onto our card. Once I have that sentiment all die cut out, we're going to begin putting everything together, and we're going to start with that frame. Using some 3mm foam strips, I am going to put those foam strips on the back of the frame, which is going to allow to give it a little bit of lift onto our card. I think that this really creates more of that framing effect by raising it up a little bit, and then once I remove the backing, I'm going to use some liquid adhesive on top of the foam tape to increase the amount of time I have to work with while I'm placing it onto my panel. I do like to often add some liquid adhesive to my larger foam tape images, especially when it's important that they're centered on the card, because that liquid adhesive gives me just a couple extra moments that I can kind of move and shuffle my image around, and I think that's really important to get that finishing touch for your project. Once I'm happy with the positioning of my wavy frame, we can then start to add some foam tape to the back of our little die cut stamped images and start to put them onto our card. Now I am still using a combination of those 3mm foam strips and on occasion using a little bit of liquid adhesive as well, particularly when the image is sort of overlapping onto the frame or another image, just to ensure that it is staying nice and adhered and it's not sort of going to float or flap out there. So just make sure everything is nice and secured to our card. Now, as I'm arranging my fishes onto the top part of my card along with the sentiment, I am keeping in mind a rule that I had learned when I took a photography class many years ago, and that is when you're arranging your elements onto a card, especially when you're working with subjects, you should allow them to face to the larger portion of your composition. And that sounds a little complicated, but it means this. If your fish is facing to the right, and it's looking towards the right, give it more to look at. Make it look like it's actually looking out into your scene that you're provided. Don't let it look like it's just going to be looking at the edge of your card. So that's why I'm carefully arranging my fish so that the fish looking to the right are positioned on the left side of the card as best as I can. I'm kind of being a little bit of a hypocrite putting the small fish down, but I had to fill in space appropriately. And then the larger fish that are facing to the left are positioned more on the right side of the card. Now we're going to adhere our card panel to our card base that I've prepared off camera. I just use liquid adhesive on the back of our prepared panel and then put it directly onto that prepared A2 size card base, ensuring that everything lines up appropriately. Now, for the last step is what I usually do is add a little bit of embellishment. We are going to pull in one of my favorite sequin mixes ever, which is Crystal Lake, and I'm just going to sort of spill out a couple of the sequins onto my mat, and then we're going to just put a couple little dots of liquid adhesive to ensure that the sequins have a little area that they can sort of latch onto. I use a pick tool just to sort of get each of the little sequins into place. I try to work in the rule of using odd numbers, and I'm also not trying to overwhelm the card with sequins, just using a couple and kind of looking at them as little bubbles. With my sequins all into place, our card is now fully completed. I love all of these cute little fishes, and that nested wavy frame really pulls it all together. Thank you so very much for stopping by today for a little bit of Ocean Wonders inspiration using this brand new release from Catherine Pooler Designs. Now, don't forget, all of the products used in today's card are listed down below in the description. And also, while you're at it, don't forget to like and subscribe for future crafty inspiration from me. Thank you so much for stopping by, and I hope you have an officially fantastic day. Goodbye.